Merrimack to the town of Northfield. I'm here to introduce House Bill 1083, 1083, that deals with titling and of cars that are jointly held with an and between the two owners' names. This came to me from a constituent in my town who recently lost her husband. Um, she liked to say they were both veterans, even though she stayed stateside, he served. And they had veteran plates on their car that they were very close to. That meant a lot to them. Upon the death of the husband, they were allowed to re-register the car one time, and then at the second, they were notified that at the second time that that would be it. You can't keep the veteran plate, and also she needed to retitle the vehicle. So it was enough of a consequence that she called me and said, this isn't right. So what you see in front of you is that bill. As we look through the RSA 26114, it was clear that there is the opportunity on the death of the first person for the surviving spouse to transfer ownership to someone else with their signature, the survivor's signature, and a copy of the death certificate. And that would be sufficient for almost 2 years if the timing was right. You would still just be able to do that. So the question became, why even make them do all of that if you can transfer it within 2 years? Why not? What's so magical about 2 years? Why not 4 years? Why not 5? Why until you want to sell a vehicle anytime? And that's what this is doing. It's just saying that from the time one person dies, the survivor may continue to register the vehicle without obtaining a new title. And that's pure and simple the reason for the bill, just to allow, in those circumstances where a vehicle is held jointly with and between their name, the ability to continue on all the way until they are selling the vehicle, and then sell it with the signature of the survivor and the death certificate, and you're good. That's it.
Questions from members of the committee? So I had a couple for you, Representative.
Sure.
So you're the only person signed up for it. Did you hear DMV okay with it?
DMV, I think I would characterize it as either ambivalent, leaning no.
Okay.
They wanted to keep it the way it works now, thinking that, and the reason that was brought up was fraud, which made me kind of question how much of a fraud concern this is. If you're able to keep it for 2 years and there's no fraud in those 2 years, why would there be more fraud if it was 3 years or 4? And the thought is, how long do people keep cars anyway here? This is you don't know the age of the vehicle when they first get it. But theoretically, somewhere in the next 5 years, is when they're going to sell it and get something else. Why retitle it just for the instance of the
My
death?
other question is the Veterans Council, did they weigh in?
We heard nothing from the
Okay.
Veterans Council, as
I
I
just want to check
recall.
because nobody else had signed up. And
I'll look into that. I don't recall that. It was 2 months ago, and I barely can remember
well,
that.
we're not going to exec any House bills until
I will
crossover,
get-
so we got a little time. But
Yeah.
otherwise, unless there are more questions, I think we're probably good to go.
I will check the file and get back to you with any kind of
Yeah.
changes to what I said.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Anybody else who didn't sign up who wants to speak on this one? Okay, I'll close the hearing, and we have to wait until 1:10, which should be just a few more minutes for the next one.
That's what I did in education this morning. We had more recesses.
Yeah.
That's what-
Thank you,
Welcome.
Mayor. I'm introducing House Bill 1217. This is the bill that would create an exception to the prohibition on video monitoring for the purpose of identifying damage, the cause of damage to covered bridges. So this is a bill that started with a conversation I had with the town administrator in Swansea. In Swansea, we have 4 covered bridges, including one right down the street from my house that carries a lot of traffic, 3,500 cars a day. 2 more in Winchester. So it's a problem with vehicles, usually oversized box trucks, coming through, clipping the bridge, doing damage, and leaving the town with the cost and the hassle of trying to repair this. And we recognize the importance of covered bridges to the state. I know we have tourists that come up all the time, and they're looking at a bridge with boards ripped off the front because of this damage. So This would allow video monitoring for the sole purpose of identifying what or who caused damage to the bridge. Understanding that there's some privacy concerns, so that it restricted to that purpose, the requirement that the videos not be retained unless they're needed for that one purpose. And a lot of support for this bill. There's a companion bill too that you may hear about. That the real hope is that nobody hits the bridge again. That this is enough of a deterrent that people will not try to drive through a 7.5 foot tall bridge with a 9-foot truck. So we took this to the Criminal Justice Committee. I think you'll hear that well received there. It passed overwhelmingly and went on voice vote on consent calendar in the House. So I think this is something that has really caught people's attention, and it's quite, people understand the importance of these bridges to the state. So that's the reason. I think we're happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. With the video, will it be posted along with the height portion that this is?
Right, so one of the amendments that was added to the bridge, which we're certainly in favor of, is that there be a sign up front warning people that there's video monitoring.
Okay,
You know, the other concern is that people should be on notice, and hopefully that serves as more of a deterrent. You know, you don't want to, you'd rather have them not drive through the bridge than to have to go collect money from them afterwards.
follow up?
Yes, of
So my
course.
concern is if they're not reading the sign that says that the height of the bridge is only this high, will they even see the sign
Well,
that
you
says
know,
they're being
I
videoed?
think that we've got to change I mean, right now, somebody looks at it and they say, well, maybe I can do it. And, you know, one bridge I have in mind, it's kind of a curved opening here, and, you know, it's 7'2" on the sides, but, you know, I can probably get through in the middle, but then you don't quite do it right and you clip the corner and you pull out a bunch of boards. So I think people know what the limit is, but they try, you know, they think they can get away with it. And they usually do, but when they don't, you know, it's, when they actually hit the bridge, it's a costly thing for the town. And, you know, even if it's not costly, some of this is cosmetic, it's not that big a deal to replace it, but that, you know, that there's, you know, they've got to get the people out there. The bridge is sort of in the damaged condition for a long time. I know we went through leaf season last fall with damage to our bridge in like 3 different places, and it just isn't a good image.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Ward?
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking my question. How often does this happen, and what has the cost been to the municipality?
The town administrator from Swansea is here, probably would give you a better answer, but I know on the bridge near my house that it's happened at least 3 times in the since the beginning of last summer. And, you know, over the years, you know, it's, you know, a couple times a year, maybe.
Okay, Thank
We
you.
might get better answers from him, but, you know, it's not that infrequent. Of course, we have a lot of traffic on our bridge. There are 40 bridges in the state, covered bridges in the state, that have vehicle traffic over them. Some only a little bit, some a lot. And I know that there are cases where there's been very, very significant damage caused, so it's not just cosmetic.
Thank you.
Senator Gendro, you had another question?
Yes, thank you. I'm just thinking about the video because we have a bridge up in my district in Lancaster that goes over to Vermont, and it was hit, left undone, fixed several weeks, and then the day within 24 hours it was hit again. They call it the headache board or something, or the headboard.
Yeah,
I forget what they call it. But I'm thinking that's a very, very rural area. To put up these videos, are you thinking solar? How are you?
I think that's really up to the municipality or the state in a few cases. It could be very simple. It could be just a dash cam on a 12-volt battery, or it could be something that, you know, there's constant monitoring. I think the one restriction is that any recording made can only be used, or the video, you know, recording has to be destroyed within I'm sorry, 7 days if it's not being used to investigate the damage. So
Okay.
there was a concern that we knew would be raised about this that I think we addressed through this language in the bill. And, exactly how it happened, there's no, particular technology or anything, but there are a number of things readily available that could be used.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. The chair will now call Representative Rhodes. Nice to see you. How are you? Good.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you for having me today. For the record, my name is Representative Jennifer Rhodes. I have the honor representing Cheshire District 17, which is Winchester, Richmond, Swansea, Troy, and Fitzwilliam. Additionally, I am also here today on behalf of the House Criminal Justice Public Safety Committee as the Vice Chairman. So everything that Representative Faulkner just said is absolutely true. The state of New Hampshire has 70 covered bridges, which 58 are considered historic. With that being said, the towns go to great lengths to keep these bridges at a higher level of standard. They are used for postcards, they're used for advertising, you see them all over the place. And the problem that was brought to me by Mr. Branley is that if a bridge is damaged, even if it is on state property, it's unfortunate that the town is still responsible for those damages. So obviously they would like to get these damages corrected as soon as possible. And when they don't have any means of recovering the damage that has been done, it does cost thousands and thousands of dollars, unfortunately, to the taxpayers. I don't know the exact amount. I've asked, a roundabout, and basically, what I was told is it is unfortunately thousands and thousands of dollars. So with that being said, another thing that the committee did was we did add the amendment onto the bill for the signage. And the amendment reads that the signage will be placed 100 feet from the bridge. And the reason for that was twofold. One, we didn't want to take away from the pictures, right? That is, people take pictures of these bridges, and again, they're used for postcards, used for advertising. You see them everywhere. So we didn't want the sign to be in the way of anybody's photo opportunity, but we also wanted to be able to be sure that people have been on notice. And that was the whole reason for it. You are on notice that there may be a camera on this bridge. And surprisingly, we didn't really have a lot of concern over privacy issues, but I actually thought we would. But what we discussed in the committee was, there's very few things that are less private that are more public than an actual public road. And that is what we need to remember, is these are public bridges, and the cameras aren't being used to look inside of people's vehicles. They're being used if somebody damages the bridge, that they're able to seek the compensation. And that is all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you
Great.
for your testimony.
Thank you very much. If there's nothing else, I'm going to head over to judiciary. We're good.
We're good.
Okay, thank you.
The chair will now recognize Representative Dreyer. Good afternoon. Welcome to Transportation.
Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Representative Margaret Dry. I represent Sullivan District 7, which is Plainfield, Cornish, Newport, Unity, and Charlestown, all of which have covered bridges. I'm here today in support of this bill because it's a good bill on its own, but also because I have a companion bill also making its way over to you, which just passed by consent last week, which raises the fine for causing damage because of overstepping limits on covered bridges. It's important to have something punitive, basically, or at least preventative, to have in the back pocket of the police that investigate these kind of accidents. But it doesn't do any good if we don't know who hit the bridge. I've passed around, and I sent to you last night a copy of the letter from Chief Doug Hackett, the police chief in the town of Cornish, describing basically how frustrating it is to get to the scene of, not only do we have the historic and iconic Cornish-Windsor covered bridge, which crosses the Connecticut River, but also lots of smaller covered bridges throughout the town, in Cornish especially. They get damaged also, and he comes and finds the pieces of the bridges, but no clues as to who hit the bridge. He hopes that by combining the cameras and a fine that's up from $62 to $1,000 will make it much less desirable to damage a covered bridge in the state of New Hampshire. The cameras would be a big part of this, however, because there are a lot of hit and run accidents against covered bridges. I just want to point out that he has one caveat at the bottom, in that some of the covered bridges that get hit that are smaller, not the big covered bridge across the Connecticut, but some of the smaller bridges don't notice the damage until it's been a few days. So the 7 days of recording might not be enough time to recognize damage, get to the tapes, find out if there's any record of who damaged the bridge. And so he said he would be comfortable more with at least 14 and maybe 30 days of data. But the fact is, it will be unrecorded at the end of that time. Then it's not going to be kept. But he would like a little bit more of a safety valve for him to investigate these things, and just have that for you to consider as you look at this. I really think this will take a big step. There have been no changes to laws covering covered bridges since 1963. So I think it's about time that we start protecting these historic items. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Senator Waters?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you. Are you in criminal justice?
No, I'm on education.
Yeah. Until I lost our rep in criminal justice. Do you think they'd have, we're not going to exec any House bills for now, but do you think you could check with criminal justice on that change past of more than 7 days?
I would probably say that the sponsor might be the best person, because
If
they've
somebody could.
he's covered it. My bill has only went to transportation and did not
Yeah,
go to criminal justice.
But, the 7 days thing, I mean, I think there's anxiety about the length of time any recordings are kept. So if we were going to change that, I think we'd have to make sure the House was okay with it.
We'll get back to you on that. Yeah.
Thanks.
And this is just a suggestion from him.
Yeah, but
uh,
I mean, I'd almost, I mean, we'll talk about it, but I almost think maybe let the 7 days lie, because I think we get pushed beyond that. It just, people get anxious about the privacy, and there's an exception we're making. So unless it's felt that maybe it's really important to do, maybe see if this works at 7. But let us know.
I'm happy to make
Let us know, okay?
make a step forward, whatever it is.
I would concur with Senator Waters, because we don't want to take what you passed in the House and then you're bringing your House bill here and asking us to change it without them having been part of the process. So maybe a bite of the apple and come back for the whole apple at another time.
Yeah, like I said, it's just a suggestion from him that I just wanted to point out.
Thank
Okay,
you.
yeah.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Okay, thank you.
The chair will now call Nate Graves. Hi, Nate. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Madam Chair. Nate Grace for the Municipal Association. We support this bill. A couple things to add here. As far as the extent to which covered bridges in our state have been damaged over the past couple years, we did a brief look at news articles, and I've seen them in Campton, Cornish, Jackson, Lancaster, and Swansea, and those were just big enough to actually hit WMUR or other news sources that would be available. Of course, there are all sorts of minor damages. I know that Chief Hackett of Cornish couldn't be here today, but he described the Cornish-Windsor Bridge as one that's struck on a fairly regular basis. I think every few months or so they have some sort of damage that they're looking to repair.
The other thing I'd add just to the question about the days of recording, if I recall correctly, although I can certainly be corrected by representatives, if I recall correctly, the discussion about why they chose 7 days was because it was long enough that presumably local officials would notice that there's damage, could go back and get that footage, but not so long it would impinge on privacy concerns. So I think that's probably why they settled on 7 days, but I'm sure that they have more insight than I do. I'm happy to take any questions the committee may have.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
The chair will now call Michael Branley. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Michael Branley, and I'm the town administrator for the town of Swansea. As has been mentioned, Swansea has 4 covered bridges, 3 of which are historic, and one of which is down the road from Representative Faulkner's home, is kind of the main impetus for this bill because it does see relatively significant traffic for a covered bridge. It's on a state road, one of the major ways between Swansea and the city of Keene. So it does get hit rather frequently. The total number of hits we really can't calculate because, as has been mentioned, often you don't necessarily notice until maybe it's been a while, or we just get it fixed and then it gets hit again. But for us, we've been fortunate that most of our damage has been relatively superficial. But as has been mentioned, other bridges have not been so lucky and have seen significant damage, requiring them to be closed, or causing other significant damage. So one of the questions which I could speak to was about kind of how to power the cameras. So our bridges, at least, I don't know if this is the case for all of them, but they have lights and they have fire suppression systems, alarms, because arson is common. So ours already have electricity, so that would not be an issue. And as also was mentioned, it'd be a local option. So if a town has a bridge that doesn't get a lot of traffic, they don't have power out there, they're not interested in it, there's nothing that would require them to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I have a statement. I'd be remiss to say that we have some pretty awesome bridges in Swansea, so I think it's a good bill. I do have a question though. Are these bridges more expensive to fix than other bridges? As in, who works on covered bridges in New Hampshire?
Yeah, so that's a good point. So often when we're not able to know who causes the damage, it's just a task that falls on our public works department. So they already have a lot of responsibilities. It takes them away from other tasks. Whereas if we had this camera system, we could hold someone responsible, go through insurance and hire basically largely it would be carpenters for the damage that we're talking about because it's hitting the wooden structure. If we had one of the more significant things and the whole foundation of the bridge were damaged, that would require engineering and a qualified contractor. But most of what we're looking at would be like a carpenter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak to House Bill 1217? Seeing none, we will close the hearing on House Bill 1217, and we will open the hearing on House Bill 1249. Thank you.
I guess, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to introduce House Bill 1249.
I'm here to introduce it.
Oh,
Prime sponsor.
excuse me. I'm sorry.
Okay. The chair will call Tim Dunleavy.
James Spillane.
Oh,
Representative James
oh, it's
Spillane.
on the bottom. Okay, sorry about that.
I was looking for somebody else.
Yeah, so, yeah, and usually, yeah, I see.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I brought this bill forward to the House because of a request from a constituent who read through, after having several encounters with various law enforcement on the lakes, where he got varying information about the inflatables he was towing with his kids on them. He read the RSA and said, "Boy, it's confusing." And I have a background as a senior technical writer that my whole job is to write things clear for people. And I went and read that and I said, "Boy, that is confusing." So I brought a version of the bill to the Resources, Recreation, and Development Committee, and they read that RSA and they said, boy, that is confusing. And it took them quite a while to even figure out what the RSA was saying to see how my bill addressed it. What we're doing here is not changing the way that we currently enforce or work. We're just clarifying the language to make it easier to understand what you can and cannot do when you're towing your inflatables. This section of RSA apparently grew from water skiing to then towing of inflatables and other devices, and was just had things added to it without any top-down structure. So what I've proposed here is something that was agreed upon as an amendment in that committee that replaced the entire previous one I had started with, because it's much clearer after the committee and I worked on it. Representative Tim Magoo was very helpful in doing that. But what we've done here, the only bit that's new is limiting the number of inflatables that can be towed to 2. The previous RSA didn't say how many. It just said no more than 9 people. So I guess you could tow 9 individual inflatables with 1 person on each, which would be a hazard. So we essentially limited it to 2 in here, and then very specifically clarified the language to say that how many observers you needed when you're towing different ones. So for inflatables, only 1 observer is required when you're towing 1 inflatable with less than 3 people, and for 2 observers for 2 inflatables with up to 6 people, but no more than 2 inflatables being towed. So it's essentially, in my opinion, a housekeeping bill. As I said, it did come out unanimously from the and on consent from the House because of these changes, and I hope that you'd be able to support it. And with that, I can answer any questions, but I have nothing more.
Any questions from members of the committee? Well, seeing none, thank you for your
Thank you so
testimony.
much.
The chair will now call Tim Dunleavy, Department of Safety Marine Patrol. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Tim Dunleavy. I'll be very brief. I come before you today representing the Department of Safety Marine Patrol. We are in support of this bill. I'll echo what you've already heard, that really this is a clarification of language, and does what change does take place is that it limits the number of inflatables that a boat can tow safely. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Senator Quinn.
Quick question. Thank you for taking my question. If I have 2 inflatables with 2 people, how many observers are required?
2, sir.
2. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, the second observer kicks in when you are really towing more than 2 people outside the boat.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to say it's always important to put safety first, so thank you for bringing the bill forward, and thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Any other members of the public that would like to speak to House Bill 1249? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on House Bill 1249. And we will open House Bill 1062. The sponsor had sent an email. They were traveling. So I'm just going to introduce the bill and say that it's relative to the use of special cover plates. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this bill? Okay, seeing none. We'll,
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Is there a sheet, or do you have a sheet? Nobody signed up? Given the vote on that in the House on this, and the concern that was raised about the not having the number plate in the front, I just would like us to hear from safety about it. So, were you here to speak to it, or?
I can answer your question.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Is that okay, Madam Chair?
of course.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Carl Huddleston. I'm a staff sergeant with the New Hampshire State Police. I serve in Troop G. And I did sit in on some of the other hearings in the transportation side of this. And if I remember correctly, the way this was supposed to work is that the front plate could be the, I get the special plate, if you want to call it that, for House of Representatives or legislature, and then the rear plate would be the actual one that's assigned to the vehicle. There are a number of states that don't issue front license plates, and we're usually looking for the back one when we pull something over. That's typically how, well, at least in my experience of 30-something years in law enforcement, that's sort of where we're looking for the official plate for the vehicle. Some people have vanity plates that are not issued by the state. Could be anything. You know, I like fishing or something. We see those sometimes on out-of-state vehicles that only require one plate. So we typically would look to the back of the vehicle for the official plate. And I know there are some, if I remember right, having one of the legislative plates get you into the parking here, rather than having to roll up and roll your window down and identify yourself to whoever may be monitoring traffic. I don't know if that actually is how it works, but I would suspect that that probably would happen if you didn't have a legislative plate on your vehicle, or at least on the front. You wouldn't be as readily recognized as being able to access maybe the parking garage or something. That's one of the things that I thought was mentioned as well. So we certainly don't object to this at all.
Senator
Yeah,
Waters?
a couple of questions, so if I may. Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to confirm, on the Easy Pass system, that if the image is taken, let's say somebody drives through, doesn't have their transponder. If the image is taken, that the image will know to go to the underlying plate?
Correct. So
In other words, I'm trying to say, the system recognizes special plates.
yes,
And
it does.
can connect them to a registered vehicle.
Yes, that information, although I'm not specifically knowledgeable about all of Easy Pass, but yes, if it doesn't recognize transponder, it will recognize the plate. It will go to the DOT side of the house as far as enforcement goes. There's a check that's run, to my knowledge, and it gets directed to whoever the registered owner is of the vehicle.
If I may, one other. You know, not that anybody would do this, but I just was speculating too, that we can get, I guess, up to 2 sets of plates.
Yes, sir.
While this suggests that 2 plates could be used on 4 vehicles. If somebody were to choose to do that, and we haven't
Correct.
here, the bill does not specify that in any case, no more than 2 vehicles may be covered by
Oh, the
specialty
plate, yeah.
plates. So I just, you know, do we need to button that up?
I don't know that you need to.
Okay.
And again, I'm not 100% sure of the answer to this question, but does the body here have regulations on how you can use your plates? Does it say that it can only be used on your primary or secondary vehicle and not on a family member's vehicle?
No, you can do family member. It's just that you can get 2 sets of plates.
Right, so
Okay.
that's my understanding. If you want to pay for 2 sets, a family member could have it if they wanted. But my official personal plates that I still, when I get inspected and all that, I keep them in the car. They have
Right.
to remain in my vehicle,
Yeah.
but my Senate plate is in the front and in the back.
Yeah.
And I don't see any reason to object to that either. I know one of the other things that was brought up, and I don't know how this factors into it, but somebody had made mention of having a veteran's plate on their vehicle, whether it gave them special access to something or special parking privileges potentially, or if somebody had a for example, a handicap plate, they would still want to have one of those on the vehicle, typically on the rear, so we could identify that. If it was in a particular spot where somebody complained that it shouldn't have been, potentially. But I don't foresee having an issue with this at all.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Anything else? You look-
Yeah.
I feel like you have a follow-up, Senator Waters.
No, I'm good. I was gonna ask Sophie something, but after I'm all done with the questions.
Senator Ward?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
I wondered, Madam Chair, since we're not gonna exec this today.
No.
And I just didn't have time to get them printed out yet, but I wonder if we could see if there was a minority report in the calendar on this one. I just understand why it's 10 to 9 in the committee and very close on the House floor, because I don't care about the bill. I mean, it seems okay. I'm just curious. When I saw that vote, I said, well, why was this? So
Okay,
that's why I was wondering if, was it a safety concern, or was it somebody worried about now you could have plates on 4 cars, or I don't know.
good question.
It beats me.
Um,
But we'll have time to get that question answered. I just couldn't get it printed out for today. So good.
Anything else from my colleagues here? I'd like to have a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Do you want to discuss anything, Zach?
If you have something we want to discuss.
I just want to mention something.
All
yeah.
right, so then-
I'll move exec.
All right, I'll second that.
So colleagues, I happened to have some conversation and see what they did on the wake bill, the wake boat bill in the House. And oh no, we're not going to vote on anything, I don't think, but I just wanted to mention that what they did is they got a bipartisan, pretty good vote, like, what would it be? 13 to 7 or something like that for 300 feet and the 50 acres, which we have the 50 acres. But they did, the Lakes folks, and I talked to the Lakes Association person, Andrea, and said, well, what are you going to do? What's the Lakes Regional Commission going to do? And she said she's going to strongly urge them to accept the 300. We'll see what happens. That will not go to the floor until a week from Thursday. Now, if the House passes that, and, the Lakes Association came down from 500 to 300, so that's their compromise. And so I just wondered what we do. And if the House passes that, whatever we do, then they're going to amend it to that. So I didn't know whether it would make more sense for us just to hold the Senate bill and see what they do, or whatever. I just want to let people aware, because I do think that if it does get a bipartisan consensus on the floor, which they think it will, and if the Lakes Association signs on,
My question, I think, would
and I don't know
be,
what you think, Jody, but
my
there we are.
question would be, yeah, please come forward.
Yeah,
My question though would be, is that going to ban it at any lakes in our state?
Jody Grumbulis, New Hampshire Marine Trades. That's what we're trying to figure out, because we don't have an answer to that. There are other portions of that bill that we have strong concerns with. It defines wake boat, which is, in our view, not a good idea, because there are various different types of boats that can do wake surfing behind them. It also broadens wake sports to go beyond wake surfing to wakeboarding, which again has been done for 20 years on New Hampshire waterways. It still requires the Department of Safety to develop wake zone maps, which the department has written to the committee and said we do not have the technology or the ability to do that. It also has an effective date of July 1st, which is a mistake to change boating policies right before our July 4th weekend. So we will continue to oppose that bill as it stands. But again, we strongly support 431 and the efforts that you're doing there. The 200, and again, I understand we'll see what comes out of the House, but that's just so you know that that's our concerns about what's before the House.
Thank you, because I was only told about the 300 feet. I didn't know about all of the other stuff. So it beats me.
Yeah, no.
Beats me.
They didn't change any of the other parts. That was just Representative Wolf brought that forward, that amendment for
Yeah, I
300.
didn't know, realize that all that stuff had stayed in there.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah. Okay.
So-
Well, we'll see then. I
Thank
just wanted
you.
to Bring people up to date.
Oh, that's wonderful. Are there any other concerns or comments while we're in executive session?
Is that the only Senate bill left?
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll see.
Any other
No,
issues?
no.
Senator Ward? Okay. I'd like a motion to come out of executive session, please.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. And now we can take a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
okay? And seconded? Okay. All those in favor to adjourn? Aye. And none opposed. Thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Madam Chair.